Welcome everyone, Questini here with a discussion about Tzeentch for patch 4.2 for Total War Warhammer 3. Shadows of Change. Just taking a look at the new content, the changes. Well, there are no campaign changes. If you're hoping that this patch would have improved Kairos' campaign or even the Changeling campaign, be prepared to walk away disappointed from that. But there is new content and extremely powerful content in this particular patch. So let's take a look at what the Changeling is getting. First off, we get the Exalted Hero of Tzeentch. Now, as I personally expected, we're getting a melee hero that is basically the regular Exalted Hero, but just with a Tzeentchian twist. So the way his model looks, I'll be honest, it looks pretty derpy. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't look that great. Even the unique icon, I'm not especially impressed by it, if I'm being honest on that. So not particularly fond of this guy in terms of how he looks. He is powerful, obviously. He is an exalted hero. He does have bonus to resist infantry, armor piercing, magical attacks, and he has a great deal of flexibility on the battlefield with the disc of Tzeentch. But beside that, same thing as you'd expect from Exalted Heroes. So melee skill line, control, and then a couple of regular skills that any Exalted Hero gets, and then some stuff that is exclusive to Tzeentch. So you get Meeting of Mind, so you get melee defense, melee attack, when nearby allies or enemies cast spell. So that's pretty decent. You get Assume Command Leadership for allies in range, which is not particularly important for Warriors of Chaos considering they have a significant leadership benefit, or 15% barrier replenishment. This is exceptionally powerful, because one of the ways you minimize casualties as Tzeentch is just moving units in and out, replenishing their barriers. So just being able to get that barrier recovered better, faster, is important. He also gets 5% casualty replenishment, which is normal for Exalted Hero from Chaos Strategist, and 20% unit experience gain for training. So you're looking at a significant experience benefit over here with from this particular hero. Actually, if we look at the army, if we're looking at the army, it's like unit experience gain is increased by 25%, though I do have two of them. Still, he is going to give you experience. What about the casualty replenishment situation, you might ask? Well, let me, and I'm actually going to switch him to the disc. Let me explain something about that. 5% is meaningless for the Changeling. The reason it's meaningless for the Changeling is you start with 10%, then you have research that you can get access to pretty quickly over here that give you an additional 10%. So Endless Mutation, Scatter Loci, and then you get an additional 10% from defeating Festus, from destroying his faction on the campaign and the Empire, which is what you want to do. So you're looking at 30% casualty replenishment faction-wide. So basically that casualty replenishment is meaningless. But what about Kairos? Well, Kairos can get 5% or 6%. Like, it's like Kairos has the same scatter loci, so you're getting 5%. His endless mutation, it's like there's no changes for Kairos. I checked that out. So Kairos having 5% extra casualty replenishment from a hero is certainly good enough, because the problem for Kairos is he can only get, like if we look at the regular Lord, we get this one, we get 6%, so 5%, 11%, so you're looking at what, 16% casualty replenishment for Kairos. This is the reason why Kairos is not worth playing. Tzeentch does have a problem with casualty replenishment, like in the sense that casualty replenishment for Tzeentch is not good at all. By default, I think it's a barrier situation. So having 5% is not great. And even when you add it all together, it's just like, yeah, Kairos' campaign is still not worth playing simply because of that. Well, economic issues, all that. I mean, he's a powerful combatant, and you did need this as Tzeentch, so I'm not complaining about that from a combatant perspective. I do wish to mention something about heroes, specifically legendary heroes. It's still an annoying situation to get access to the scribes, because you need to get the tier 5 structure over here that you're not really interested in devoting so much effort to. And it takes an enormous number of turns and a bunch of cult supplies. It's pretty annoying to get one of the legendary heroes. A-Cult is much better, much easier, sure, but like the one fun legendary hero that we could get The one paid one is just that frustrating to pick up. At least as the Changeling. It might be easier, like I think it might be easier to get them as Kairos, but still. I mean, it is turn 44, so you're basically at turn 50 or so. Like, you could rush for it, but you've got other priorities in this campaign to worry about, you know, other things to do over here that are going to be, as far as I'm concerned, the priority as opposed to getting access to that. From just my personal perspective on this subject. Like, I am working on it. It is going to take some time. It is going to take some time, though. It's kind of annoying with the Changeling campaign because you start with very limited cult supplies. It's not even the money, it's the cult supplies. And the construction time is fairly long for your buildings, but that's because you don't have to deal with the growth. Okay, so that's one of the things. We get the Exalted Hero of Tzeentch. What else do we get? Well, we get the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch. Now, I had one over here. I turned him into a Demon Prince. It's the same Demon Prince that you might expect. I believe there's no real difference over here between a Demon Prince from a Chaos Sorcerer Lord or a regular Chaos Lord. So no real difference in that. I shouldn't have even bothered transforming him. But this is the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch. Pretty cool model for what it's worth. Like, pretty cool model. Can ride the Disc of Tzeentch. Can get the Chaos Chariot. All well and good. It's kind of interesting. The Chaos Chariot is much higher level. Personally, my personal perspective, the Disc is the much better choice just because of the extra mobility you get from flying. You get Silver Shield, a lot of armor piercing, anti-large, magical attacks, all really good. And the only thing special that makes him special for a Chaos Lord is like just the marked Chaos Lord. So you get Faked Marked, you get physical resistance for all Chaos Warriors, Chaos Knights, and Chosen units, and Heroic Healing Blow, and then you get the brand of T'Challa, which gives you Paragon of Change, which replenishes barrier hit points of combatants. Now, do I think he's worth it, or do I think like the Chaos Sorcerer Lord is the better choice? Because I do have one right here. Well, I think the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, who has the exact same benefits, is probably worth picking up more. The reason is, believe it or not, like, Tzeentch actually has a limitation in terms of magic. In terms of getting a lot of magic, because your mages, like, consider this, when you're looking at the Tzeentch campaign, it doesn't matter if we're talking about Kairos, the Changeling, same situation applies. To get one Chaos Sorcerer of Tzeentch, you need to get the Tier 4 settlement, and that's just one. To increase capacity requires Tier 5. What about horrors? They are casters, yeah, but you're basically only building the structure to get the horror hero. So you've got other priorities. You've got the limited economy as Kairos in particular, and as the Changeling, you're so limited by cult supplies that you don't really care too much. So limitation in terms of capacity. Meanwhile, here's the thing. Here's the thing to note. With magic, you get melee power with Exalted Hero because you get Exalted Hero at Tier 3. You're always going to want to get the Many Eye Tribute to at least Tier 3. Like, getting it to Tier 2 is something you always want to do in every Tzeentch campaign. Changeling, Kairos, doesn't matter. Getting it to Tier 3, not that much of a hop. Getting it to Tier 4, not really a horrible. But getting it to Tier 5 to just get an extra hero capacity, whereas you already get hero capacity for the Exalted Hero, yeah, I mean, I just don't see... I see my priorities as Tzeentch with Lords to get magic from them and rely on, right now, the Exalted Heroes. And even if you didn't have the Exalted Heroes, I wish to point this out, even if you didn't have the Exalted Heroes, your army is a melee army. You go with Tzaangors, you go Forsaken of Tzeentch. Like, if you don't own the DLC, you go Forsaken. And then, Chaos Warriors, if you own Champions of Chaos. So what's the value exactly from that? I don't really see much of a value in going with the Chaos Lord. Maybe that's just my perspective. Obviously, for multiplayer, like, I feel like this was more focused on flashy multiplayer stuff or just units. I'm not saying it's not useful, but I'm just questioning the value. Like, if I've played this campaign, my second Lord was a melee Lord. It doesn't really matter for the Changeling because your armies are so powerful with Tzaangors. The problem is in Changeling campaign, in a Tzeentch campaign, casualty replenishment, even with the Changeling, it's like until you defeat Festus, kind of a bit of a problem. But your armies are incredibly powerful. So, it may not necessarily matter all that much, but still. Outside of that, what else do we get in a Tzeentch campaign? Besides the new Lord, the new hero, what else are we looking at over here? Well, obviously, there is, like, we do get the Tangors, right? Now, the Tangors are also acquired through the many attributes. So you get the Tangors, the Centigors. We get the Centigors of Tzeentch from the tier 3 barracks over there. What do I feel about them? Well, I think they're kind of meaningless, honestly. Like, yes, it is a better cavalry choice than obviously getting Marauder Horsemen of Tzeentch, and you don't need to get Chaos Knights through a dedicated building with that. Kind of meaningless from a campaign perspective. More useful for Beastmen, I would say, probably, because like Centigore is kind of whatever for Beastmen, but with the barrier, they become more useful because they can recover that during the battle. Vanguard deployment, charge bonus, Mark of Tzeentch, magical attacks, barrier, and then arcane charge, base weapon damage, armor piercing damage, and effect intensity increases when spells are cast. So good amount of power with those Centigores of Tzeentch, just don't really see that much of a benefit for using them in a campaign. Multiplayer, skirmish, whatever, fair enough, right? That's a different discussion. The real unit, the real winner over here are the Changebringers. Now, my perspective on flamethrowers, they're cool to use, but you almost never want to use too many of them because they derp out. Like, there's so many problems with range combat right now, line of sight, and this really affects flamethrowers in particular. Now, of course, exalted flamers or regular flamers of Tzeentch can do an enormous amount of damage. That's known. Any flamethrower unit can do a significant amount of damage in a campaign. That is a well-known fact. But the problem is they're relatively slow for what it is. Like, Tzeentch flamethrowers are faster than most, fair enough, but they can be relatively slow. And the problem you're going to encounter when using exalted flamers or regular flamers is like it's so easy for the enemy to snipe them. It's harder for that to matter with Tzeentch because of the barrier, but it does ultimately matter. And this is where the Changebringers come in. These guys are a game changer. Like, they're a game changer because they don't have the range combat issue that regular flamers have. So if you get damage with any if you can get that good line of sight, that perfect line of sight, that good micro with a regular flamethrower unit, you're gonna obliterate an enemy army. That's not the discussion. But it's getting that line of sight because of all the freaking range combat issues that exist in this game. Well, Changebringers don't care because they fly. And when you see these guys shoot, yes, Exalted Flamers do more damage in theory, but they're fewer model, but you know, it's just one model. It can be derpy, it can be tricky. So the Changebringers are the best flamethrower unit in the game. The extra mobility they have and the flying aspect that they have makes it so that when they shoot at an enemy, you're not, like, one of the problems that exists with most flamethrower units, regular flamers in general, is the fact that some of the models may not shoot, so you're actually losing damage. Now, it's not necessarily the problem with the Exalted Flamer, sure, but it's just one model that you do have a very powerful model, but basically, like, single entity range units are also not particularly great. Like, this is one of the problems with ranged heroes, ranged lords in the game right now. They're actually kind of worse than any unit, so that's the issue. Like, you might think, oh, it's a single entity, it should do better. It doesn't necessarily from a practical standpoint. Changebringers will have a lot, almost all, if not all of the models, when you order them to shoot at a unit, virtually every single model in that unit is going to fire. The amount of damage these guys do, you have to see it to believe it. But basically, obviously, like, they've got the same kind of range combat ability, like, it's the same flame for all of them, but it is a flame that makes them weak to fire, reduces armor, has armor piercing, you get magical attacks, flaming attacks, and ammunition. This is, like, this unit alone, the only limitation that you have with this unit is ammo. Like, that is it. Like, the only problem you're gonna have with this unit is ammo. Thankfully, Corruption of Tzeentch does increase ammunition for all Tzeentch units. They can run out of ammo pretty quickly, but by the time they run out of ammunition, like I said, they get 10 shots by default. By the time they run out of ammunition, they've probably devastated half the army. And if you need help, like the basic Tzeentch army of Tzaangors and Forsaken is going to obliterate many things in its path. These guys are just a benefit. They are vulnerable. Make no mistake on that. They are vulnerable in melee, because obviously they don't have good melee defense or anything like that, or any kind of real melee attack, so they are very, very vulnerable if they get swarmed. Like, Harpies can defeat these guys, probably. But, and as for ranged units, sniping them out of the sky, good luck with that with the barrier. So, like, I don't want to face off against these guys. So, I'll be honest, like, when I look at a lot of the stuff they added, I just am not particularly impressed with patch 4.2. There's some cool stuff, to be certain. Tzeentch is pretty cool, undeniably so. The Froststorm for Kislev is pretty sweet, like, once you see it in combat. But, like, to me, personally, the Changebringers are the star of the show of Shadows of Change, as it is. Like, the most exciting stuff that we got in this entire patch. Like, just that flying flamethrower aspect that melts armies, especially if the enemy blobs up. They're great in sieges, they're great in field battles, they're great in any kind of situation. They're difficult to take down. Like, the only good opportunity, like, it's not, range attacks are not going to kill them that easily. It will obviously take, if you fly them into a huge concentration of enemy range troops, probably they're going to die pretty quickly, right? But in a normal battle, that's not exactly what's going to happen. Their major vulnerabilities flying units, but that's about it. Really powerful, really good unit, really nice actually, because like it's frustrating to use a lot of flamers in any campaign that has them. So dwarf campaigns, Skaven campaign, doesn't matter what we're talking about. Anyone that has flamers, it's kind of frustrating. You want the power, it's just annoying to micro it and all that. Suddenly Tzeentch just plays by his own rules, so to speak. So, what do I think about the Tzeentch changes? Well, I like the Changebringers. I do like the addition of the Exalted Hero. Not particularly interested. Like, the Castle Lord actually looks cool. Like, I like the model, but not particularly interested in using him in a campaign. Changebringers are amazing, but, like, would I play a Kairos campaign? Would I play a Changeling campaign? Well, I did play a Changeling campaign over here. No. I'm like, this is a thing CA needs to understand with this, and this is my perspective. Did anything that they add in this patch make players more willing to play Kislev or Cafe or Tzeentch more than they were before? I don't think so. I really don't think anything they changed made any difference in that dynamic and the number of people willing to play this than they were before. Like, if you wanted to play a campaign as Tzeentch or Kislev or Cafe, you're already going to play those campaigns. Like, maybe that's just my perspective. Let me know what you guys think. Costin signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.